Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're going to be ranking each of the generic jobs in Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, and we're going to be doing this from the perspective of Tactician mode, although that's not really such a big deal. Now, when we're going to be ranking these jobs, we're going to be looking at, are you using this job in Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the end game. For example, if we have a job that the skill set for the job is really good, but nobody's actually playing or using the build craft on that specific job, it's not going to be ranked too highly in my book. For me, you want that job to be really powerful as far as its stats, and then to have a lot of options as far as the build craft. So keep that in mind when we're doing these rankings. Other than that, we have 20 jobs to go through, so that means we're going to have to be moving at a pretty quick pace. So if I gloss over one of your favorite features about a job, just let me know in the comments below. And also, we're pretty close to 7,000 subs, so if you could help a brother out and hit that like and subscribe button, especially if you're new, I'd really appreciate it. But other than that, let's get started. Now, the first job that is up is the Squire, and this is the first job everybody has. And if you look at the Squire, they have some pretty good skills. Their skills, their job command is called Fundaments. Now, I admittedly probably use two of these Squire abilities or their support abilities more than any other abilities in the game, and that would be Focus for grinding, and then everybody is using JP Boost. But other than that, when it actually comes to the buildcraft side, you don't use Squire after like leveling it maybe like 2 or 3 levels. This is a job where you get some key components here. Focus can be good, I would say, in the buildcraft sandbox for physical jobs, but you mainly just use it to, again, like JP farm or something like that. But this is one of the jobs where you come on, you get the key abilities, and then you move on. Nobody ever goes back to Squire. Now, Squire does have some unique things, something like Beastmaster. That can be cool, but not a lot of people do that. I'm sticking Squire into the D tier. Again, you kind of get in. It's just like a stepping stone to the rest of the jobs in the game. So that's kind of what D tier is for me. Some useful things, but again, nobody's going back to it. And next up is the Chemist. Actually, there's a lot to talk about with the Chemist because from chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, the Chemist kind of gets stronger and stronger. And this is what I would say is like a good job. Now, Chemist here, its stats, as far as its stat growth, nothing stand out, all very average across the board, and that's probably the worst thing about the Chemist, because other than that, their skill set here or their job command items, insanely good. Phoenix downs, potions, elixirs, and you're able to throw them. In this version as well, for Ivalice Chronicles, the Chemist here comes intrinsically with Treasure Hunter, meaning you just put on a Chemist and then you can have any movement ability, something like Teleport, and you're still going to find treasure. It is insanely good. The reaction ability here, Auto Potion, S tier. Also, the support abilities, Safeguard. This is just really handy against knights or people that are trying to steal your equipment. Really good. Just across the board, Chemist, as far as their skill sets and their ability, amazing. And they get even better because Chemist here can use guns, and that becomes strong in chapter 2, and then they get the elemental guns later on. So they start off as this super really good support, instant healing, Phoenix downs, all that, and then their offensive capabilities get elevated as you go into each chapter. So Chemist here, I don't think to anybody's surprise, this is an A tier job. Real quick, when it comes to S tier, I will be crowning one job as S tier, and it's going to be both a job that I love, but also a job that is just super effective in Final Fantasy Tactics. And of course, it's probably going to come from one of the jobs that we put into A tier. And as far as the left or right, I wouldn't worry about that too much as we start throwing more jobs into each of those rows. But anyways, let's move on. And the next job that is up is the Knight, and oh boy, this is my personal favorite job in Final Fantasy Tactics. Great physical attack and great HP as far as their stats, but the real kicker, or I would say the biggest feature for the Knight, are those Knight swords. They are the only generic job that gets access to those weapons, and those are the best weapons in the game, period. There's a huge boon to why Knight is just an amazing job, because chapter 1 there, they're very tanky, that brawler character, they're hard to kill because they have shields, so they're going to be that frontline character for you. And as you go on in the game, you can equip them to be a little bit more offensive. You can give them the support ability Dual Wield, which synergizes perfectly with Arts of War, but when you get Knight Swords, you're going to get 2 permanent boons on you, something like Protect, Haste, or Regen. You can mix and match. And then their job commands there, Arts of War, I saw a lot of people who were new to Ivalice Chronicles really making use of Arts of War, especially the Rend power and Rend speed against boss enemies, because in Tactician, the bosses have a little bit more health and we don't do as much damage. I think we were nerfed a little bit, but these Rend abilities completely neuter them, and it kind of reminds me of Foe Breaker from Final Fantasy 12, where the Yasmat fight there, you just rend all of his stats down, and that fight turns into just a pinata fight for you. So that is really strong. Other than that, the reaction ability parry, this is kind of cheap version of reflex. Not all that useful because a Knight Sword, like something like the Defender, you're not going to be able to get that until like chapter 3. So not that useful for how early you get this parry ability. And then for the support abilities, heavy armor and shields, they're amazing for squishier classes, something like a summoner or black mage. You give them a shield or some heavy armor. Heavy armor for a monk is actually really good, but it just makes those jobs much more tanky and have higher survivability, and that comes from the knight here. And I don't think it gets enough credit for equip shields. I have done a whole solo challenge with the knight showing off how powerful it can be in the sandbox. So I don't want to harp on too much about it, but it's also going into A tier. I just think the buildcraft side for the knight is just amazing. And the sprite work, those models there, both the female and the male knight, ooh, those look really good. I think a lot of people downplay knight because you get Agrius and you get Sid, who have all the equipment benefits of the knight, but their skill sets are holy swords. Yeah, those offensive capabilities are just insane. But if we're comparing just generic jobs, the only one that get those knight swords, and damn, they're good. Next up is the archer, and I think for the community for Ivalice Chronicles, as far as like job tweaking, this is the job everybody was kind of hoping that would see a lot of changes, and that didn't really happen. But looking at their abilities here, they had the aim command, and this is good for physical damage dealers. But this like aim 10 and aim 20, they technically shorten the charge time, but it's still not something that's viable, because while you're still charging, it would be better to actually attack instead of waiting for this charge up, and you're going to do either like very similar damage or more damage. So these two aim abilities still not very good. The reaction abilities though, speed surge, this is good for the late game, and then support abilities, concentration, I love concentration, just guaranteed damage, especially pairing it with the knight. I like that. The archer here, a very solid job in my opinion. They are the only job that gets to use longbows or just bows, and I don't know, I think there's like a novelty to that. So then the question becomes, where do we put the archer? I'm tempted to put it into B tier because again, just very solid. We might be moving it down. Maybe we'll see how this shakes out. We do kind of want as close to a bell curve as we can, but I didn't say this in the beginning, but every job is technically viable, and Final Fantasy Tactics not overly difficult as soon as you like understand the game mechanics. So even if I put say Archer into C tier, it doesn't really mean too much. You can go the entire game with Archer and they're going to perform just fine for you. But I think they'll stay in B tier for right now, but yeah, they're on the chopping block there. And oh good, look who's next. It's the monk, the job that just, I do everything. Now, monks, stat growth wise, great physical attack, great HP as well, and they have more speed than something like a knight. Really solid there. Their equipment, not the greatest. That's probably where they suffer the most, but because their HP growth is so high, it's actually not that big of a deal. Ability wise, martial arts. This is one of the best secondary or best job commands in the game, because you have something like Aura Blast, Shockwave, you can revive, you can use Chakra to heal and gain MP. Insanely good. And then let's just keep going. Reaction abilities, critical, recover HP. If you can find that sweet spot, this is really good, especially for, again, jobs that have a high HP pool where you're more likely to hit that critical state. Very solid. Counter and then first strike. These are both amazing reaction abilities as well, as from the offensive standpoint. And then Brawler, for whatever reason, really helps out with stealing. So there's a little caveat for Brawler as well, even though that's never stated. And then movement ability here, Life Font, very solid as well. I think it's no surprise where Monk is going. Yeah, Monk, you're just going straight into A tier. We're gonna put you at the tippity top, and you might be an S tier contender because yeah, Monk there is just it's just great across the board, and it is for the entire game because of their core abilities and their stat growth. They're just that good. Oh yeah, now the White Mage. This is one of my favorite spellcasters. Now, the stat-wise, they have really good speed, actually, and then pretty decent physical attack. On the magic attack side, not as good as the other spellcasters, actually, but not a huge deal. They are commands here. They're white magics. The cures, sometimes you use them, sometimes you don't, but I really think the White Mage, as far as where they shine, obviously raising from a distance and then doing something like re-raise, really good as far as like buffing your team in that first or second turn. Regen, very handy as well. And then for the early game, protect and shell, those are always useful. Wall, also just good. Holy, this is, what is this, the best single target spell in the game as far as damage. Somebody was saying that this is the easiest way to hit that 999 cap is if you give this to Ramza. You don't have to be like level 99. So Holy here is just amazing. And the animation for it is S tier. Reaction ability, regenerate. This is okay. This not many jobs I would actually say make great use of regenerate. You'd have to have a job that has a high HP pool. The defense ability, so you got magic defense boost and then the regular defense boost. Not a lot of people talk about how useful this can be for survivability, but I think White Mage, their kit here, is just solid across the board. And the fact that you can build your White Mage, because they have that little bit of physical attack, you can build your White Mage to be like an amazing Dragoon with the jump ability. That's a fan favorite build to do. And so there's a lot more to White Mage than I think people actually realize. Now, ranking the White Mage, where are we going to put it? I think it belongs in B tier. I think it's solid across the board. Again, has that flexibility to be that support class, but you can build it for more offensive capabilities other than just using Holy as well. So I really like the White Mage. Now on the flip side, we have the Black Mage, and as far as the stats are concerned with the Black Mage, they have decent speed, but their magic attack power is one of, if not the best in the game. So that pairs nicely with a lot of other jobs, but let's start with the Black Mage commands here. These are going to carry you throughout the game, and they just get better and better as, again, the game goes on. They get a little bit of a debuff with something like Toad here. It's fun to toad enemies. And then they also get instant death with the spell Death. This is amazing. The reaction ability here, magic counter, actually don't use this too often, but their support ability, magic boost, this is really handy if you're going to pair Black Mage with Samurai. Really good as far as just bumping out a lot of damage. Give them shield, turn them into a battle mage. Yeah, that's a really strong combination. Flare is, it's okay. I like Holy a little bit better, but this is great single target damage. Really no complaints there. Spellcasters in Magic for Final Fantasy Tactics is just devastating across the board. Some of the best damage, especially area damage as well, because you can pair Black Mage with Summoner and actually cast those summon spells more effectively as a Black Mage. Easy A tier. I've done a solo challenge with Black Mage as well. It went a little bit better with the Black Mage than it did with the Knight, but to be fair, with the Knight, I was doing a lot of trial and error and kind of learning how to defeat those combat encounters efficiently. So Black Mage may have benefited from that a little bit. Either way, it's an amazing job, a lot of flexibility, does some of the highest damage as far as our generic jobs. Now on to one of the most desirable jobs, at least from their skill set, and that is the Time Mage. Time Mage has decent magic attack as far as their job growth. Not as much as a Black Mage, but pretty good still. But their Time Magics here, these are insanely good. Haste, slow, stop, immobilize. These are useful throughout the game. You get Time Mage probably at near the end of chapter 1, and they're just going to be useful for you across the board. Reaction abilities, Mana Shield. This is S tier. This is how to really ensure you get something like Zodiarch. It'll make actually a lot of encounters insanely easy if you pair Mana Shield with Mana Font. Just give that to everybody. You're going to be really slow as far as your movement is concerned, but you're trading that trade-off is survivability. Critical Quick, Not something I actually really like to gamble with because, again, you got to be in that critical state, so kind of stay away from that one. Swift Spell, give this to Black Mage, Summoner, any of the other spellcasters, and I prefer Swift Spell compared to Magic Attack Boost because I would rather those spells get off in time, especially the higher tier spells. It's really important that those actually proc rather than waiting and then having like an enemy come and kill you while you're in that charged state. So Swift Spell here, S tier. Movement abilities, teleport, a whopping 3000 JP now, but still, this is one of the best movement abilities in the game. We already talked a little bit about it with the Chemist as far as having Treasure Hunter with this. Just lets you move around the map with such ease, especially when there's a bunch of like height elevation. So Midlight Steep, love teleport. Can be a little frustrating if you gamble on the teleports as far as trying to go some like far distance. That can be really, again, frustrating to have those fail continually. Happened plenty of times on my night, but I still love you, teleport. Now, going back to what I said at the beginning of the video, something that I'm heavily weighing is how often are you actually going to build off of that job? So do you ever go back to Time Mage after you get all the Time Mage abilities or the abilities that you want? And not really, but I do think it is the pinnacle, the height of that. You get onto the job, it has a lot of S tier abilities for their support, their reaction, and their movement, and then the time magics are also amazing themselves. And they service the buildcraft and the sandbox just amazingly across the board, whether you're a spellcaster or you're a physical damage dealer. And I think we will stick them into A tier because, again, they are the pinnacle of, again, grab it and go, but I'm not going to stay on a Time Mage, if that makes any sense. I will give them the benefit of the doubt, but they may also, similar to Archer there, they may be on the chopping block. But you know what? I have a good feeling Time Mage is going to stay in A tier because I think they get brownie points for their sprite model. They are so goofy looking that it's almost cool, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Moving on. Actually, I need to make some more tea. I've been yapping for so long. My throat's getting dry. And next up is the Summoner job. Now, Summoners, they have good magic attack stat and then also good MP growth. Speed, not so great. But their summons here, these are amazing. You got Moogle, which is a cure, and then these low tier summons, but they do a lot of damage and they cover a wide area. Shiva, Ifrit, Ramu, Titan, excellent. Golem here, this is a great support ability to do, I don't know, first 2 turns here. And then you get those higher tier summons, Bahamut, Leviathan, Odin. These are all really cool to look at. And then the ultimate summon here, Zodiark, is just amazing. You have to find this in Midlight Steep. You have to have it cast upon you to learn it. It's one of the only kind of hidden spells in the game. Really cool. As far as our reaction abilities are concerned, don't really like critical recovery of MP. And then the support ability here, have MP. This is useful for maybe if you're just going to stick to the the first tier of summons. That can be handy. But if you're going to be using something like, again, Bahamut, Leviathan, Odin, Zodiark, and Cyclops, then I think Swift Spell is just far superior. And so I think Summoner here, this goes into A tier. Technically, Black Mage is like a better Summoner in my opinion, or at least they make use of the summon spells better than the Summoner, but still, the summons are amazing. Sticking on Summoner there, still an A tier job in my opinion. I also took out the other genders for the jobs, not to have both of them because it was already looking a little bloated. Now next up is the Thief, and this is an interesting one. They have a high speed stat, and they also get a bump to their physical evasion, but everything else is kind of average. Now their job command here, Steal, this is almost like mandatory during the story because this is the only way you can get the Genji gear in chapter 4, but even prior to that, it's an easy way to pick up the Blood Sword and then the Defender as well. So it has some uses, and their ability actions, some other ones, Steel Heart. This is amazing, just in general, just to be able to flip an enemy with the charm. Reaction abilities, Sticky Fingers. This is really good against ninjas for that rare encounter, but not going to honestly be using it too much, I would say, in the story. Midlight Steep, that's also it also can be good because you get ninjas in there that can be a little pesky. Their support ability, Poach. This is S tier because it opens up the whole poaching side of the game, and if you have not poached in Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, do it. It is so easy to get some of the best items in the game, all those perfumes, much easier in this version of the game. Do it. Just do it. Movement abilities. Movement +2. This is great. This is another one of those jobs where the abilities that you're picking up are really excellent. But are you going back to Thief to actually build out, the Thief job? Not so much, actually, because something like a Monk is kind of a better stealer than the Thief is, so this is an interesting one. I'm going to be putting Thief into B tier because it is just that useful, again, from the ability side, and then it just adds so much more to the sandbox, especially if you're in the end game and you want multiple copies of the highest tier weapons. Thief is one of the only ways you can get it because those ninjas will throw something like a Chaos Blade at you and you catch it. And then the poaching side we already talked about. It's just that good, but the Thief job itself and building that out, not that desirable in my opinion. So I do think I think it sits perfectly in B tier for me. And next up is the Geomancer, and I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble with this one. Stat growth wise, kind of average across the board. Doesn't really I would say shine in any area. They are one of those jobs that has a physical side and then a magical side as well. So looking at their job command, they have these geomancy abilities that it depends on which terrain tile you're sitting on, and then it's range, and it's an instant cast, doesn't cost any MP, and it'll hit a target, and then also the cardinal directions of that tile's square. Now the damage on these geomancy abilities, not that high. You'd really have to build into your magic attack stat to make these, I would say, worth doing as far as DPS. Other than that, their status ailments that they can inflict, it can be good, but again, it matters what terrain you're sitting on, and then there's a chance that that status ailment will go off. Doesn't cost any MP though, so it's like always like these little trade-offs with the Geomancer there. These are decent. These are very much middle of the road for me. Reaction ability, Nature's Wrath. This actually works on any job, so any damage, incoming damage that you take, this reaction will work. Again, I think this is also solid. The support ability here, Attack Boost. This is excellent for somebody like Sid or Agrius. A lot of the unique jobs, Attack Boost is amazing for. And then their movement abilities, Ignore Terrain and Lava Walking, kind of not useless, but I never use them, so useless to me essentially. So Geomancer, where do I put you? I think I have to stick Geomancer into C tier, and then I cannot leave Archer above Geomancer. I think these two belong in the same category together, so moving Archer down. Geomancer used to be one of my favorite jobs, especially when I first started playing the game, but kind of expanded my horizon. It's still very good, it's just I don't think it's as effective as the jobs above it right now. Yeah, that ranking could probably get me into some trouble. It's okay though. Next up is the Dragoon, and yeah, we're going in the order of the job trailer. I don't know if anybody's noticed that, but Dragoon, first off, the sprite model for the Dragoon, I think they look S tier. They look so cool. Stat-wise, physical attack, HP, pretty good. The only thing that really stinks about the Dragoon is their speed, because their ability, command here, jump, this is based off your raw speed stat. You cannot use haste, and it's not going to make your jump any quicker. And unfortunately, can some modder please have it so when you use your jump, it shows up on the when you're going to land on the left hand side, kind of like when you're casting either aim or a spell. I would love that for jump, just to tell when it's going to land. It's just, I feel like all those other abilities and spells got that quality of life, but no, not jump here. Jump though, as an ability, is really good, again, if you have a high speed stat. Unfortunately, I think something like Thief, Ninja, even White Mage, they make better use out of the jump command than the Dragoon does. And that's kind of sad. But reaction ability here, Dragonheart, giving yourself re-raise. Yeah, this is really solid. Didn't use a lot of it in my last playthrough, or as far as the Let's Play, but I do love Dragonheart there. And then to make those other jobs better at jumping than the Dragoon, you need Equip Polearms. So this is really solid, kind of similar to Equip Shield for the Knight. Equip Polearm here really just opens up the sandbox, especially the offensive capabilities for those jobs that we just talked about. And then Ignore Elevation. This is also really good, especially in, I think, Chapter 4, when you are going to speak with Sid and you got to go to like the dam and the fort. This ignore elevation and just like jumping all the way up on those like castle walls or those outpost walls. That's really fun to see. So that's why I kind of like ignore elevation here. So overall, I think Dragoon, I'm gonna stick it in B tier, the very tippity top of B tier here. It's just the jump command's a little funny. The fact that you don't need to take like jump 1, 2, and 3. You can just get the last tier of jump, and it's gonna cover everything under that. So again, that's just a little odd to me. I wish I don't know, maybe they had a different ability, kind of similar to Archer there, where their aim abilities, it's like kind of, I don't know, boring, I guess you could say. Like Archer there should have got like something like a poison arrow or maybe like a pinning arrow to like having a target immobilized. But overall, I do think the Dragoon is just better than the Archer, and especially because they get pole arms, you get attack from additional tile away. That means if an enemy has something like counter, they're not going to be able to hit you. Really good for fighting against monsters, but tippity top of B tier, which is it's really good. And next up is the Samurai. And as far as their stat growth, they have good physical attack and MP actually, which is a little weird in my book, but their Ido abilities here, their draw out katanas, these are excellent for basically spellcasters, and the Samurai isn't exactly a spellcaster because their gear and equipment tends to lean towards being in the front line, a little more physical with their katanas, which do really good damage, but their ability actions here, again, they're better served on a spellcaster. Now you can cure, you can also give your allies protect and shell all in one turn, instant cast, so that's useful. And this works out in an area radius around you, but it's tied to the katanas that you have available to you, meaning if you blitz to a Samurai in chapter 1, well, you're not going to be able to use any of your abilities. And so Samurai is very much a chapter 3, 4, and late game job, and unfortunately I don't think it's that great because the katanas, you got to wait till they become available in the shops. Again, they can break. That's going to hurt your gil a lot. These katanas are not cheap to have to replace a lot of them. And then the higher tier katanas, you only get like one of them from either stealing it or finding it as treasure. And then you have to rely on ninjas throwing them at you to replenish if these higher tier ones break. So that's kind of a pain in the ass. And then for their reaction abilities, Bone Crusher, this is okay, but Shira Dorhai, this is like S tier. This is really good against physical attacks, especially if you're running a party with a high bravery, which you should in my opinion. And then for their support abilities, Equip Katana, actually never used this, but Double Hand actually does more damage than Dual Wield until Dual Wield is breaking the damage cap of 999. But prior to that, Double Hand actually does more damage. So not a lot of people actually use Double Hand, and I wish Samurais came intrinsically with Double Hand, but they don't for some reason. And I know that's a big grievance with Samurai here. And then the movement ability, Swim, don't ever really use this. I feel like this one's also going to get me into trouble, but Samurai, I'm sticking in C tier. It's a little bit later in the game, kind of a pain in the ass with all the katanas, and then those katanas are better used on spellcasters. So you're not staying on Samurai to use those katanas, at least not the ones that do damage. Yeah, you can use the ones that give you protect and they'll heal you, but again, you really want to make use of the damage that they provide. And I like Samurai, I really do, but they're kind of an awkward job in this game. I think I'm gonna keep them in C tier, so yeah, let's move on. Now next up is the Ninja, and they have high speed and physical attack, which are two of the best stat growths in the game in my opinion. And they also come intrinsically with dual wield, meaning that physical attack, yeah, puts out a lot of damage, really making them one of the best physical attackers in the game. Their job command here, throw, they can throw night swords. That's really strong. They can throw any weapon in the game essentially, and then they also get bombs and shurikens, which are unique to them. This is handy for a range option because they're dual wield, that you have to be in melee, but they have a really good range option as well. And then their reaction abilities, Vanish, this is S tier. Reflexes, this is S tier. Their support ability, dual wield, this is S tier, especially on any physical damage dealer, something like a monk, a knight. This is just amazing. And then their movement ability, water walking, this is also S. I'm just kidding. This don't really ever use this, but everything else is just amazing across the board. So it really comes as no surprise, but yeah, Ninja here, this goes into A tier and is definitely a S tier contender. But you know, it's not an S tier contender, the Orator. Well, I don't know, they're actually pretty good. Job growth wise, as far as their stats, pretty decent speed. Nothing really stands out as far as the Orator because their job command here, Speechcraft, this is where they really shine. Entice, this is how you get enemies to join your party, both humans and monsters. And then Praise, this is a way to increase your bravery outside of using Ramza. And then Preach, this is how you build up your faith. And Ramza can't do that with his unique job. But also you get Condemned, which you can give somebody Doom. And then they also get Stall, which you set an enemy's CT to 0, basically restarting their turn. That can be handy. Reaction ability, Earplugs. Don't really use this too often. Support abilities, Equip Guns, amazing. Tame, this can also be pretty handy. And then Beast Tongue, this is for if you take Speechcraft as a secondary job. You're going to need Beast Tongue as your support ability if you want to, again, entice monsters. Over the years, the Orator has been a job that initially was like, I don't like this at all. But it has grown on me for how useful it can be, especially for that more support side and building up your character's stats as far as bravery and faith, and then enticing monsters, going back to the poaching side. And again, that's how you get some of the best equipment in the game. Orators help all that out. I think I have to stick them into B tier because you don't need to be an Orator to basically be effective at again, enticing monsters or raising your character's stats. These other jobs can do it if you just grab all the abilities on the Orator and then you can move on. But I think they kind of fit into a similar position as the Thief there, where they have a lot of crucial abilities. It's just I don't find myself going from story mission to story mission with an Orator in my party. Next up we have the Mystic. You know what? I have a special place in my heart for the Mystic. We'll talk about that when we rank them, but they have okay stats when it comes to magical attack power, but nothing that really shines. Now their Mystic Arts, these are essentially the spell caster version of what Beowulf's abilities are as a Templar. These are all really good if you like to debuff targets, make them basically into a chicken. But something like Disbelief here, I love using this and turning one of my characters into an atheist if they have a really powerful spell that's being cast on them, and then that spell will do 0 damage. Just something that Mystics and again Beowulf can do that I don't think a lot of people actually talk about. I don't know, it's fun, but they have a lot of status ailments to the degree of like how useful these are. Again, you kind of got to be a player that likes to inflict something like Disable, Berserk, and there's other jobs that can do these same things as well. So I would say their job command there, it's solid, I would say, across the board. Now their reaction ability, Absorb MP, don't find myself using this very often. Support abilities, again, like how we talked about magic defense boost, on Mystic here we have defense boost, which helps against physical attacks. This is a great way to build out a tanky character. Again, not a lot of people talk about how good this support ability can be. Movement abilities, ignore weather. Who uses this? I don't know. But Mana Font here, this is S tier. This again pairs really well with Mana Shield from Time Mage, so this is a crucial part of that build craft. Amazing. Now, why do I have a special place in my heart for the Mystic here? Well, similar to how people or the community views the Knight, because they look down upon the Knight because you have Agrius, you have Sid, who just kind of do that job better, and they benefit from all the same equipment. Well, Mystic here kind of gets the short end of the stick in my book because we get Beowulf, who does all the Mystic Arts better in my opinion, and I love having Beowulf on my party. But Beowulf's kit is essentially the same kit as the Mystic Arts, as far as they can do the same thing, except the Mystic there obviously has to cast that spell, but you can curve that with as far as the charge times with something like Swift Spell. So now I feel like I'm in a pickle because again, I love Beowulf, but as far as using a Mystic, I barely ever do, because I'm like, if I'm going to be using all those debuffs, I'll just wait till I get Beowulf. But that's not to say they're not good. I think they're solid overall. They have some abilities that are absolutely crucial for some build craft, so I think I'll stick them in B tier. And maybe I should drop them down a little bit because they're offensive as far as like actual damage. They can drain some health, but they're not using a sword and they don't have Vengeance or Shock that Beowulf has. I don't know. I'm going to keep them in B tier. Let's move on. Oh, good. The Arithmetician, the stat growth across the board is pathetic. Really, really bad. No redeeming quality as far as, again, their stats. The only thing that's good about the Arithmetician is their job command. They're basically able to, with their calculations, they can cast a lot of high-level spells instantly at any range. You just, again, you got to play into the formulas here. And let's not forget that getting to Arithmetician is a pain in the ass. As far as if you're a normal player and you aren't gunning for this job, you're probably not going to see this job until the late game, and by then you don't really need them. Now, as far as the reaction ability, Couple Life is okay, but Soulbind is like universal, where it'll proc at any time you're hit by, range damage sources or melee. I really like Soulbind. And then their support ability, EXP boost, this is good for grinding. Although again, this is a late game class. I don't know how much grinding you really need from the Arithmetician here. And then their movement abilities, accrue XP and accrue JP. These are also useful, again, if you're grinding. I think Arithmetician is why I needed to make that statement at the beginning of the video, as far as I am highly weighing, are you playing this actual job, again, in chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and how effective are they? In Arithmetician, you are not. You're going on to Arithmetician, you're getting those abilities, and you are 100% switching to a spellcaster, like a Black Mage. And then, that Black Mage will be God tier. But that's not really necessary for this game, because at that point, you're already going to have like a super overpowered party. And again, Arithmetician, it's just, you don't need it. You don't need it. And then the formula playstyle, not really for everybody. It can be annoying. I find it annoying. Oh, Mr. Nomad, that's because you don't know how to do math. And to that I say, that's not very nice, but true. But either way, Arithmetician, really, really tempted to put it into D tier with Squire. Kind of, they're both in a similar situation here, where beginning of the game, you grab the Squire abilities and you move on. Arithmetician here, you grab them at the end of the game and then you just go back to what you were already doing. But the fact that they do make these spellcasters essentially God tier, super broken, but there's nothing in the game that requires that level of power. So is the work to get to the Arithmetician even worth it? There's a lot to consider. You know what? They're staying in D tier. They have horrible stat growth, even worse than the Squire there. So that one might get me into trouble, but I don't care. Let's move on. And we're almost at the end. Let's talk about the gender-specific jobs. And start off with Dancer here. Job stat growth-wise, not very good. These endgame jobs, they typically, they don't have very good stat growth. Their job command, Dance, I actually like this a lot. You can play a little bit into the RNG nature of some of these abilities, especially Forbidden Dance here, but all these have it's like a 50% chance to hit, at least the normal one, something like Witch Hunt and Last Dance, but Forbidden Dance is my favorite one. It has a chance to inflict a random status ailment on your enemies. You can park your Dancer in the corner of the map, and it hits all ranges, all the enemies. Really fun. Not going to be for everybody, and again, you're really like, it's just this debuffer. That's really all the Dancer is doing. Their reaction abilities, Speed or Strength Surge and then Bravery Surge. These are good for like end game builds, especially Bravery Surge for a character that you don't have maxed out Bravery on. It can be a little handy. Movement ability, Jump 3. This is okay. Fly is much better in my opinion. I actually like Fly as a movement ability. Now when it comes to ranking the Dancer, very niche playstyle. I don't think it's going to be for everybody. I may like it, but I also see that it has a lot of faults. And then you're kind of pigeonholed because the Dance ability, you have to continually cast it for it to be effective, and you can't do any other action. So for me, I think Dancer sits into C tier, kind of niche. And on the male side, we have the Bard. Again, stat growth, not very good. And they have their Bard song. So instead of debuffing the enemy, their Bard songs here, they're going to buff your allies. And in my opinion, these buffs, they're okay. They're good, right? But I'd rather be debuffing the enemies, and I think that's just going to come down to personal preference. Reaction-wise, we get Magic Surge and then Faith Surge. And you'll notice that in tactics here, genders are different, where the males, they are more physical based. So the Bard here, it helps out with their more magical side with Magic Surge and Faith Surge. Where on the flip side, the Dancer, the females, they're better spellcasters. They have Strength and Bravery. So that's kind of, I guess that's why they have these reaction abilities. How useful they are, doesn't really matter too much. Movement ability wise though, they get Move +3. way better than jump +3 in my opinion. So this movement is like S tier. I'd definitely take movement +3 over fly. So again, the flip side of the dancer for male characters, I think I have to just stick it also into C tier. The opposite of the dancer, it's just a party buffer from distance, pigeonholes your playstyle, very niche. So I feel like, yeah, they belong basically side by side right next to each other. And last and almost probably least in my book is the Mime. Now they have really high stat growth across the board, really good for leveling. But the Mime here, the playstyle, it doesn't come with any abilities. It's very, very niche. And then the work that you need to put in to unlock the Mime is even worth it. The normal people, no, absolutely stay away. This is just, it's not, I don't know, just not for me. They come intrinsically with Beastmaster, Brawler, and Concentration. So if you can do some very like goofy things with the Mime, but I have never taken a Mime in my party seriously. In fact, Ivalice Chronicles is probably the most I've played Mime, and that is just to get the achievement. Other than that, there's no really build craft to the Mime. I don't like it at all. And I don't expect normal players to downgrade their character's level and then re-level as a Mime to hit those high level stats quicker and be like a crazy person that has like 999 health, 999 MP. Again, there's nothing in the game that warrants that. So in my book, the Mime, yeah, I'm going to be sticking its goofy ass into F tier. Don't ever use it. Don't really ever plan on using it. The super veterans of tactics are probably flipping over their desk being like, whoa, 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 Mime is like the best. That's how I get all my high stats. But you don't need that in this game. And normal people are never going to do that. So I feel like it would be in really bad faith for me to be like, yes, guys, Mime is really good. No, it's not. It's a very, very niche situation that you'd be using a Mime that is completely not warranted to enjoy this game at all, and it doesn't play into any of the build craft, which is one of the biggest strengths of Final Fantasy Tactics. For me, that's why it's sitting in F tier. Now, we do need to crown an S tier job here. Oh man, I think you could give it to probably 2 or 3 of these A tiers. I think you could give it to Black Mage, Ninja, and Monk. No problem. For me, I'll probably throw Black Mage up there. I just did a solo challenge with Black Mage, and you just kind of forget how good the Black Mage's their stats are and what you can do with that as far as making a battle mage, going just strictly with some summons and just blowing up everything. You can just stick with the Black Mage abilities. And again, Black Mage, just universally across the board, excellent for chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. They never have like a dip in power. They just get stronger and stronger as the build craft and like the sandbox expands. So for me, yeah, I'm gonna crown that as my S tier, but oof, my Knight, you're pretty close. But anyways, guys, this is my tier list overall. I don't expect everybody to feel the same way about these jobs, but remember, I'm coming at them from a perspective of, are you actually using that job and then building it out into something and taking it from story mission to story mission? I really think this overall reflects how much I use these jobs and then how effective they are. This has been a really long video. If you've made it this far, thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Peace and take care.